September 29th, 1982. 12-year-old Mary Kellerman wasn't feeling well. She went and told her parents that she had a sore throat and a runny nose. They did what any parent would do and tried to help. They gave her 1 extra-strength Tylenol and continued on with their morning. By 7 a.m., Mary was dead. Elsewhere in Chicago, postal worker Adam Janus suddenly suffered a massive heart attack and was pronounced dead at the hospital. In the months that followed, these deaths, and others, would completely change the way we live today. Shortly after the death of Adam Janus, his brother and sister-in-law, Stanley and Teresa, went to his home to grieve with the rest of the family. After suffering massive headaches, they both took an extra-strength Tylenol out of a bottle they found in Adam's house. Later that day, Stanley would die, with Teresa following just 2 days later. Dr. Thomas Kim, medical director of Northwest Community Hospital's intensive care unit, who had handled delivering news to the Janus family, received a call that the family was coming back. His recollection of the incident is as follows.
As I was putting on my blue blazer to leave, around 5:30, a nurse told me that they were bringing the Janus family back. And I said, well, it's probably the parents, because they were feeble and they might have been very upset. And the nurse said, no, it's his brother. I had been talking to this 6-foot healthy guy. And I said, well, what happened? Did he faint? And she said, they're doing CPR, and they're working on his wife, too. That's when I took my blazer off.
Something strange was happening. First Adam Janus, and then his brother and sister-in-law shortly after they arrived at his house. There had to be a link there. Nick Pichos, investigator with Cook County's Medical Examiner's Office, who had earlier in the day interviewed Mary Kellerman's father over the phone, arrived at the hospital. He asked around, and no one knew what was happening. He knew they needed to get to Adam Janus' house and try to find a reason for these deaths before anyone else died. Elsewhere in Chicago, Mary Reiner is at home with her 1-week-old baby. She's not feeling well and takes an extra-strength Tylenol and collapses dead shortly after. Mary McFarland, working at an Illinois Bell store, goes to the back room to take a couple of Tylenol for a headache. She is the 5th mysterious death linked to taking the pills. When investigator Pichos, along with nurse Helen Jensen, arrive at the Janus house, they believe they might have discovered what was happening, but not why.
I found a bottle of Tylenol, and there were 6 capsules missing, and 3 people dead. In my mind, it had to be something to do with the Tylenol. And of course, there was no protective sealing on this or any other over-the-counter drugs. They just had cotton tucked in there. So, we went back to Northwest Community Hospital. We took the bottle with us.
Nurse Jensen took the bottle of pills, dropped it down in front of everyone, and declared that it was the cause. Initially, no one believed her. They insisted that it couldn't be the Tylenol. Jensen may have thought she had the cause, but she had no proof. Luckily, the paramedics who had attended to Mary Kellerman had taken possession of the bottle she had used that morning. Dr. Kim sent blood from the victims to a lab for testing while Pichos checked the pill bottles. They had the same control number, MC2880. Pichos was instructed to smell the pills. They smelled strongly of almonds, a smell commonly associated with cyanide. The lab work returns to Dr. Kim, and it's just as he suspected. Levels of cyanide 100 to 1,000 times more than the amount to kill a human. Immediately, Tylenol parent company Johnson & Johnson is put on the back foot. A press conference is held by the deputy medical examiner, warning people that cyanide had been found in Tylenol capsules. Shortly after, Johnson & Johnson recalls all of lot MC2880. The next day, after the death of Paula Prince, a 35-year-old flight attendant, Chicago Mayor Jane Byrne makes a decision that likely saved a lot of lives. She demanded all Tylenol be removed from shelves in Chicago. Just 2 days later, Johnson & Johnson recalls every bottle of Tylenol in the country. 31 million bottles, worth more than $100 million. The police had more than 1,200 actionable leads. They met with higher-ups from Johnson & Johnson, thinking that maybe this was the work of a disgruntled employee on the factory side of production. Johnson & Johnson receive a letter. The Tylenol murders would stop if they paid the writer $1 million. The letter was traced back to James Lewis. After a lengthy investigation into Lewis, the Chicago police superintendent had this to say.
It wasn't James Lewis. James Lewis was an asshole, an opportunist. He tried to extort some money from Johnson & Johnson and he went to jail. He was in the joint a long time. When someone is in the penitentiary, you can go and talk to him, with or without his lawyer present. In all those years, all the work on James Lewis to put it together, nothing.
Some still believe that Lewis had some hand in the poisonings. He was the only suspect of note. Now, 30-plus years later, no one knows who was poisoning Tylenol. During the investigation, a few more contaminated bottles showed up. Some think that one of the victims was targeted, and that the killer contaminated other bottles of pills to cover their tracks with innocent bodies. Others believe that the goal was to shut down the United States. Thankfully, with the quick thinking of the doctors and investigators, the pills were removed from the shelves before the domestic terror plot could play out fully. In 2012, the FBI requested DNA samples from Unabomber Ted Kaczynski due to his first 4 crimes occurring in Chicago and his parents owning a home in Lombard, Illinois. Due to the Tylenol poisonings, over-the-counter drugs are now required to have a tamper-resistant seal on all bottles. The case remains open. So, what do you think? Who was poisoning Tylenol in Chicago, and for what reason? Let me know in the comments or on Twitter @DreadUnsolved or on Instagram @DreadTheUnsolved. I'm also on Facebook. You can send me your theories to theunsolved@dreadcentral.com. Thanks for watching.